ashes burn in the stone, and night is our turn.
What's up, Star Wars Unlimited fans? It's Loopy at Late Night Gaming, and we are here for the Sabine ECL 2.0 deck tech and guide. The goal of this video is to teach you not only how to upgrade the deck and what the lists are, but how to play all the cards, right? Because we're going to do this a little bit different format than a masterclass. I'm hoping to keep this significantly shorter, even though we have a music video at the end, and that's exciting. But knowing what cards address what situations is what the core of this game is about. If I can teach you what you want to do, what your major plays are, what you're looking to accomplish, and then what cards address certain situations, that's a lot better than just giving you a list and a sidebar guide, because the truth is, and it's getting more distinct in set 2, lists vary. You can have 5 different ways to build a Boba Green. Okay, you have to adjust those decisions to what's actually in their deck. So we're going to be talking a lot about how the cards interplay with different parts of the meta. So I am playing this in Gen Con. If somebody here is a competitor and you're checking this video to scope me, I appreciate your dedication. I think you probably know a lot about Sabine Green already, but the reason I'm playing it, I'll tell you how I came to this. My wife's been playing Green Bean since the beginning of the game. We pulled a showcase Sabine. This is actually the showcase art for Sabine. And she's been on it since day one. It's her best deck. She's running it one of the days of Gen Con that she's playing. The other day, she doesn't have a ticket. I'm going to run the deck. And I realized that I wanted to play Sabine Green through the testing process, because the 2 decks I tested, every crazy idea I had in set 2 against were Boba Yellow and Sabine Green, because those are going to be strong decks. And if you can't beat those, you really don't, you probably want to be looking elsewhere. So as I was doing that, I realized that I just learned a lot of the lines into a variety of situations, and then I checked my win percentages on my internal testing, and actually Sabine Green was the highest win percentage, so let's give it a shot. Okay, so why do you play Sabine? Is that 1 or 2? Well, first off, it's the premier aggro deck. I would say that it has mid-range components now, but it is the premier aggro deck. Not a lot of people disagree with that. It is extremely consistent. Okay, I don't think there's a deck that's actually as consistent as Sabine Green. There's a lot of reasons for that. Part of that is for a cause and it's card draw. Part of that is just the multitude of different threats she has. She always stays in the game. I don't think that there's any matchup that is across the table for you as you start that you don't have a path to victory, right? Because Sabine Green can be that versatile. So it's not one that feels bad that, you know, you just are punting a matchup. It's got great new cards, and really it got as much help or more than I think any of the other decks in Star Wars Unlimited. We'll talk about that. That's the function of the video. As the aggro player in the room in a big tournament, you are keeping control honest. As the set and the meta evolves, we'll probably have more control decks than maybe at the very beginning right now. And finally, John Tana made this point in the masterclass for Sabine Green. You'll get to eat. The games are quick. You'll have time between your matches. All right. So we're not going to redo the masterclass. That video was of 2 people who top 4'd the first major set 1 tournament. I'd recommend it for set 1. I'm going to be talking about basically the new cards and how it goes. If you want a long discussion as to ping or not to ping, if you want to talk about the leader, if you want to talk about the core standard cards, also check out the masterclass, which we linked in the comments. So, Team Sabine got new players. First off, Wrecker. I think this is the best card in the deck. Now, I think it was for a cause set 1. But Wrecker ends the most games for me. I mean, he's a heavyweight, figuratively and literally. Wrecker Boom. He just has a power to nail something for 5 and then overwhelm on top of it, which is an extremely strong thing if you can set up an ambush. And we got 4 ways to do it in this deck. Poe Dameron, the most expensive legendary in the set. He's in a parachute here. I'll explain that later. But he fixes a lot of situations that would otherwise lose you game set 1. Cassian. I think it's in most of the Sabine lists. You'll get to appreciate this guy as you go. He's very consistent. He's hard to remove. He's got rebel synergy, and he can come in ready from the research room. Finally, timely intervention. I rank this card and not some others that people think are real strong as the most impactful. The ability to ambush multiple times, I'm sold on. I mean, and we'll talk about that. So here is the list. We have the link published on Symbiode in the comments. So check it out. Jam it in your testing. Make your changes. No two players are the same. No list is good for every single player. Just some of the overarching courses. You kind of have the strong 2 and 3 drop core that made set 1 to be great. You have 3 copies of Poe, 3 copies of Record. With that much top heavy, we have mid-range elements already. I do have 3 Daring Raid and Timely, and I'll explain to you why. I do run 2 Dark Sabers, and I'll explain to you why. The sideboard has a lot of different role players for different things. We have Heroic Resolve, Fighters for Freedom, Fang Fighters, Marauder, which I think is an underrated card for sure. And then I do carry U-Wing Reinforcement for a specific matchup that I lets you replay the board. All right, so I grew up in the 90s. Oakland Athletics were a thing. There was the Bash Brothers then. And I think if I'm explaining the lines of this deck, and I was explaining this to my wife, I mean, really figuring out what the ECL is for and what the timely intervention now, which is your second, third, fourth time that you can ECL is for, is really important to good results. All right, so the strongest card to ambush is Record, no doubt. All right, and it's because of his Overwhelm. He is a 7 attack Overwhelm. So they have Vagridio out. He will hit their base for 6 on turn 5, resource 6. Real strong. Okay, you should be at 15, 20 damage in their base by then. I mean, it's most often the last card cast. Okay, you want to find this guy. You want to keep 1 or 2 copies, depending on the situation. And you don't always want to blow things up, particularly if you have a second Record and a Timely in your hand. You want to draw your Timelies late in the game. They can be smuggled in for 2, but it's hard to smuggle in a Wrecker for 2. You can often smuggle in from the resource row K2 to do the thing. But you do not always use the boom. You don't always do the 5 to a ground unit, because if it's not helping you win the game, it's just actually taking a resource away for next turn that you could be using to push damage. All right. The other Bash Brother is K2. I mean, I think this is a core card. You should never cut K2 from this deck. I don't ever sideboard K2. He is the #1 target for timely interventions. If the game is going to plan, a lot of time you're doing that on turn 4 when you have 5 resources. You're playing Timely for 1 and then K2 to ambush something that has low health. Because it'll get your Overwhelm, and then when he dies, you're going to get another 3 damage. Very consistent, great card. Thorn and Controls card. I mean, they can remove him, but they're still going to take a hit. All right. Poe Dameron, and we call him Ripcord here. He's in a parachute. This art, by the way, is done by my friend Symbiode, who's the master of memes. Really just great stuff. And I'm actually using this term from the KTOD Discord. I think it was Bobby Sapphire that said Poe is the Ripcord. What I have to say about Poe is, despite being the most expensive card, he is not your game plan. Okay? Ambushing Poe, even if you have it, at most can do 2 damage to their base. Sabine is all about taking opportunities to generate damage on the base. Sometimes you just play him out without ambush on turn 4 when you're way ahead, and if you don't think that they have an answer to him. But mostly, he's the card that you save for bad situations because he is extremely versatile. He can defeat an upgrade by discarding a card, do 2 damage to base by discarding a card, or cause them to discard a card from hand. The last one is sometimes what you do if you think that their last card is, say, Overwhelming Barrage or Cunning. But really, he's what you pull. And the reason it's called Ripcord is to get you out of a situation that would cause you to lose. Boba Armor, Darksaber, Traitorous. High value upgrades that are going to lose you the game, he takes care of. You don't really want to use him to attack, but if you let him live, he's going to hit their base for 8. When he comes back in the second time, he can actually attack the base and then also discard a card to do damage. He is not free. He does eat the cards in your hand, which you need. Every card in this deck is good. There's all kinds of good decks, good cards that we could play that we can't because we are limited to 60 if you want to be consistent. But think of him as Mr. Fix-It or the Ripcord or the Parachute. Use him in case of emergencies. He can get you back in the game that has turned the other way due to an upgrade or due to a unit that is so strong for some reason or another that you absolutely have to remove it. Cassian, I think, is probably more impactful than Poe, all things considered, to this deck. He's not dependent on having a turn 1 play. The one thing that did change about this set is that there's decks that can reliably and easily remove your turn 1 play. Okay, so Fleet Lieutenant Wing Leader are only good if you have a unit out, if you have a Rebel unit out. Cassian is always a 3/5. He's hard to remove. That 5 health is extremely important in many matchups, and Boba Yellow is one of them. So feel free to cast him on 3. He's also a good resource early game if you have a good curve, multiple 3-drop units, or it's not a deck that can remove your turn 1 play. You can resource him, and you can bring him in for 5 resources, and he's going to come in ready and the game. I mean, sometimes you're at 7 resources. I mean, you throw this guy in, maybe you have the heroic resolves in, and he finishes off, does the last little bit of damage. Whatever play gets you to lethal is the right play. He does have Rebel Synergy, and he is one of the finishers of the deck. He's often the last attack if it's not Wrecker in my testing. Bright Hope. I have zero problem recommending 3 of this card right now. The meta may change. This is a card that does get sideboarded out a lot, unlike Cassian or K2 or Wrecker. Well, actually, I do board out Wrecker and aggro mirrors. But against the decks you need it. It's one of the best cards in the deck. And that would include mono yellow decks. I say mono yellow decks because it's not just Boba. There's a Han yellow deck that won a tournament. They typically use space attack. Sabine yellow is going to attack you in space. Any deck that's Tarkin yellow, any deck that's trying to get you in the space arena, this is like the Dikembe Mutombo of cards. It just blocks. It has 6 health. It can protect your red 3. Is a great synergy. It can protect your A-Wing, which is a card that you don't want them hitting because it only hits for 1 back. Great card. It has a plain Bosk that's not as obvious. If you are playing against Bosk, which is going to use bounties, or other decks that use bounties, try to sequence so that they're putting bounties on a ground unit. Oftentimes, you can get 2 bounties that Bosk plays, and your battlefield being almost dead, and then the beginning of 4, you Bright Hope it back, you draw a card, and you clear their first 2 plays. It's great stuff. It is a card that if you don't need, you should sideboard out. And that's matchup by matchup. On game 1, resource it. On games 2 and 3, you can take this out for something that helps you more. All right. What are the standards of this deck? This is not too much change from set 1. You have A-Wing, which is an excellent 2-drop spaceship, though there's more things that can kill at turn 1. I mean, it's a bad matchup into a A-Wing that's going to attack faster, or Kylo Tie, or a mercenary gunship. Sabine Ren, actually, I think is improved from set 1. And the reason is there's lots of decks that are using 3/1s, and Sabine is just very strong into them. It's good to take a free kill. Okay, if you can get a free kill on a deck that's also trying to push damage before they do, that's often the right play. It's not always just laser focused on based, and the more you play Sabine, you'll get into that. Red 3, I think, is strong. 4 Cause I believe in is as good as it's always been. I have found myself from time to time casting this on turn 2 in set 2, primarily for decks that are trying to do bounties, where I just don't want to put a unit out at all. But if you need to fix your hand because your cards are bad, I mean, it does fix your draw and it does some damage. Fleet Lieutenant and Wing Leader. I do have, 2 fleets and 3 Wing Leaders, which I know is heresy. The reason for that is that I'm leaning more away from Rebel Synergy. I mean, it's very good, but Poe and Wrecker, I think, are obvious 3-0s that do not have the Rebel tag. There's some other cards that do not. Sundari is one of them. Marauder, I don't think, is a Rebel. So between the 2, I mean, you can decide what you want to do. You could run 3 copies of each, got something else. I keep the 3 Wing Leaders because, 1, they're so good against Villain Blue because of Power of the Dark Side. And really, that when played effect is just very, very strong. So I prefer that and get the double experience, usually on Speed Leader, but, You know, if you can get it on a overwhelmer, that's just as good. Battlefield Marine is totally vanilla. That's a blink text pack, right? But it's good. All right, so let's talk about Rebel Assault and Metal Ceremony. Rebel Assault is the most important card in the mirror. I mean, if you want to find a access for 3, go ahead and do that, and don't resource this if you're in an aggro mirror. Metal Ceremony. The guy next to that listed, or that picture, is Chrono, who, shout out to Chrono and actually Justin from KTOD that have been working a lot on this deck. I subscribe over there, but Chrono originally cracked Sabine ECL in the first place with the team over there. He actually wrote a song to Metal Ceremony. This card is divisive. I do run copies of Metal Ceremony. I think it is very important, and his chorus starts with, "It changes the math, it turns wrong into right." Okay, and this is the music video we're going to listen to later because I think it's an awesome song. You know, not every deck has a jam beat, track, but it's pretty cool that Sabine does. But I do believe in Metal Ceremony. I mean, I think that when you're doing buffs, it's great if you can ever double Metal Ceremony Sabine. I mean, that very often will win games. It's okay to cast if you have one rebel that attacked that turn. I mean, and you're getting close to damage. I mean, if you can ever get 2 or 3, I mean, just jam the Metal Ceremony. It is also useful against all the force throw decks running around. You keep that in your hand, and then if they force throw you, they do exactly 0 damage to your units, which is one way that you can counter Ray on. All right, so one of the more controversial choices to my list, I do run 3 Timely and 3 Daring. Okay, so why? Loopy, doesn't this worsen 4 cause? Yes, I mean, your 4 causes hit for 3 or 4, not 4 every time. So there's that. But taking Frank's point from the yellow Sabine, if you're just going to close damage, is it bad if you hit a Daring Raid? Next turn, you're going to be able to do tame damage. So there's that. But I don't think that damage to the base is the core reason this card exists. There are multiple decks where you need to pick things off. 2 big ones are, I think, the best new leader, Han 2, that does damage to guys as it comes in. The other one I find is Kira. Kira's flip damages all the units. I posted my league match that I won in Saga League against a Kira deck. I think actually the key card to one of those games was a Daring Raid to pick off a Kira that had 6 damage on her, who was going to overwhelm the barrage me for 8, probably. Early in the matchup, it's for that. If it is the last 2 points of damage you use, it's that. I do think that it's good enough to play. Timely is similar. The ability to ambush is so good against control. It is. We have so much overwhelm here. There's so many good ECL targets. I tend to resource this and try to smuggle it if it's on the first turn of the game. After that, I really will tend to hold on to my Timelies, particularly if I got a Wrecker or a K2 in my hand as well, because you're going to want to use it to push the Bash Brothers through, ideally. There's all sorts of other plays you can do. Sometimes the Sabine unit ambush is great. Sometimes it's the Wing Leader ambush to buff and take care of a 2 health space unit is great. Look for opportunities to cast that Timely and ambush. All right, this card is divisive. If you have played Darksaber, it wins games. It does. If you play a Darksaber and they do not answer it, you probably just won the game. It also loses games. It's the riskiest play I think the deck can make. There's many counters. Fangfighter Poe is one of them. Most decks have some upgrade hate available to their 60, or somebody who really didn't do a great job making that deck. So there's some matches that it's good, some matches that it's not. I think against, say a hero yellow that's not running Bamboozle, I mean, it can win you the game by itself. But, I mean, if you're going to cast it, ideally it's so late in the sequence that they've already claimed, so you know it's going to hit. It should ordinarily go on Sabine leader, because she can't be bounced, certainly against yellow. I have it in my list in large part just to make him respected. I find myself actually taking this out game 2 and 3 if I think they're bringing in the counters to it, because I cast it game 1. So think about that in your matches. And it is definitely matchup dependent. It's a very strong card. It's not really the Mandalorian unit parts that you get it, though it does, you have Sundari and the two Sabines that are Mandalorians to look at. But the Dark Saber, powerful but risky. All right, role players. Let's talk about the cards and their uses. First off, Heroic Resolve. Probably my hardest decision that I think could go either way is actually just whether to do Heroic Sacrifice or Resolve. Ultimately, I landed on Resolve, primarily because it takes Sabine Leader out of takedown range for Villain Blue, which is also where it fits. I tend to use this to give a unit that should not have Overwhelm. Sabine Leader is one. Poe. I mean, if they let your Poe live, but if they have a Sentinel, Heroic Resolve, and then defeat it to give Poe ambush and +4, that'll end the game. So Spec Force Soldier and Fighters for Freedoms are the other ones that are primarily anti-Sentinel. Fighters for Freedom actually has Saboteur, so it's also anti-shield. You get Luke, Leader. Fighters for Freedom is coming in. If you get a deck that is running all kinds of shields with Mandalorian and armor, Fighters for Freedom is coming in. You need it. Any team needs role players. They need the pinch hitter that comes off the bench or the left-hand specialist to do certain things. These cards are that. Disabling Fang Fighter. It's obviously an anti-upgrade tool. You board this in for many matchups. I boarded in for Boba Yellow. I boarded in for Sabine with Dark Sabers. I boarded in, obviously, for Bosk to take care of his upgrades. I haven't seen too much like functional Gar Saxon decks, but anything that's very upgrade-based, you do that. Sundari Peacekeeper, and I really like this guy. First off, he has 5 health. He helps a little bit at the mirror. I think he's excellent against Boba Yellow. Who, hits a lot of things that hits for 4, not 5. 2 Restore is great. If he 2s for once, where he kills 2 things and then restores 4, that's not really an aggro play, that's a mid-rangey type play, but it's also very, very strong, changes the math. I do run Marauder in the sideboard to help additionally buff up the space decks, and it has played very well. Valiant Assault Ship is another option here. Rebel Resource mentions that in his video. Shout out to Ryan. But I do like Marauder the best, and the reason is that it has ambush there. You don't have to use your timely. You don't have to use your ECL for it. Also, it has the when played. Well, this card comes in at 5. If you're casting it and you have a Sabine Leader, that's your leader, right? She's probably going to be out when you cast this for 5. Prioritize playing a Sabine unit early. A free ramp at that point can be great. I do believe in reusing reinforcement for these matchups, and this is meta dependent too, but I use this primarily against decks that have the ability to just do lots and lots of control and or super laser blast and or heal. It also can help find the unit that you need or a whole bunch of things if you need to go wide, particularly blue that does not have green with it. This can be real strong. I found it has been useful in enough matchups when the games are going late that it should play. All right. So what are our game plans? This is the last slide. I'm not going to give you the exact cards to sideboard because that's not really what you should be doing. You should be going towards the actual list. You can have a Boba Green that's a very aggressive deck. You have a Boba Green that's a very controlled deck. You got to kind of read their game plan here. But aggro mirrors, anything that's an aggro deck. Sabine Green, it's very interesting. Often is put into the control matchup now, particularly if you're running the Darren grades like I am, and then you can just get high value kills for not a lot of money. But that's not, it goes back and forth with the game plan. Whoever's closer to winning tends to be the beatdown. The other card tends to be the control. Key cards for the matchup are Rebel Assault for sure. Metal Ceremony. This is a matchup where you're trying to do, lots of damage. You're trying to maintain initiative. You're trying to be fast. Fleet Lieutenant plays very well in aggro mirrors. So just try to push as much damage unless it's getting out of control. Then you kind of gotta get to a control part. You can try a Dark Saber. I mean, I don't think it's great against Green Bean. Yellow would have to have Bamboozle, okay, which is not in every deck. So you could there against a double red deck. Darksaber is not what you want to be doing because they have aggression and they can wreck your day. Mono yellow. Most common is Boba, but I think a lot of Han, some other decks are coming up through the results that have been of the first tournament that we have. These matches are fascinating because they flip flop as to, I mean, who's really trying to push damage or not. I mean, Boba yellow can be very, very aggressive. Okay, so, I mean, things like if you have the opportunity to just delete a Greedo with a Sabine unit, you might want to take that. I mean, a lot of times that's a timely play late in game. You play a, timely intervention Sabine, you save your ECL for a wrecker into Boba leader's face. But that can be a strong, strong play on something with one house left. I think that you gotta watch out for their cunnings. You want to try to go to initiative first, and I mean, do the best. I mean, I do think that this matchup is way closer than it was set to one where Boba Yellow really picked on Sabine. Now I think that it's a coin flip-ish where the better player tends to win. Now, if he draws 2-3 cunnings, he's probably going to win that game, but that's not every time. And you have the ability to draw 2. Okay, ramp decks. So they got some more tools. I mean, Pelp Green has a lot of defense. Okay, I mean, we have a lot. I have a lot on my list that's dealing with that kind of matchup with the ambush. I mean, you just got to be doing consistent damage every turn. The 5-cost Sentinels are a problem. That's what the Spec Forces are in. That's why the Fighters for Freedoms can be there to end up. But, I mean, it can be tough. You want to be trying to be consistent. Green is not the time to go wide. You're better off playing a K2 for 4 and keeping tempo than you are playing 2-3 things in the middle ceremony on a turn. I mean, you want to be putting big threats. Wrecker is key to beating a ramp deck. You typically are going to have a little easier time into the dual colored ramp decks like Vader than you are into mono Pelp because of command and a couple of other things that he can do to buff. So try that out. Okay, mid-range force throw decks. This is one where your game plan is more in the mindset of killing high-value units than anything. If you've watched our content before, you know that by one of my favorite decks, set 1 was Churret. I played several hundred games Churret. I know that there's people who think that Ray just deletes Sabine and that's a buy for Ray. I don't see it. I mean, I wreck Ray consistently, and I don't think you can, duplicate the, hundreds of games I've played on Hero Blue Red that I understand that deck and its lines. But I think the main thing to say is kill things that restore 2. Okay, you can't just let the Moisture Farm live. You can't just let Kanan live. You can't just let Yoda live. They need to die. I mean, not only are 2 of them force units, if she's restoring every turn, it's going to be bad. If you could control the board, I mean, it's okay if your damage is a little bit lower than other decks, because on turn 5, when there's 6 resources and Ray comes out, she is wrecker bait. And so is Obi, which is the biggest way she has to protect it. I actually think that Churret is the best into Sabine of the blue-red decks. Han Blue is, I'll probably do a deck video on that, as I love Han Blue, set 2. But, I mean, I think all of these decks are beatable. It's about strategy, right? It's about killing high-value force units, not letting them go. All right, so mid-range value. This can be Han Green. This can be Luke Green. These are some of the hardest matches for us. Certainly Han. Though that's gotten better set 2 than 1-2. I think Han is more beatable. One you got to watch out for Tech DJ, if it's Han in particular. Against Luke, I mean, bring in your saboteurs. Bring in, keep Wrecker, obviously, because some of his units are Wrecker bait. And you gotta get this down before Luke unit comes down. I mean, it's about killing him in that, space where you're way favored before they can start slinging Luke Skywalker Jedi Knights. And then hard and soft control. I mean, see, these are some of the best decks. This can be hard control. I think that you should be very favored into it. They have a lot of 1-to-1 removal, and you have the ability to go wide. Just All gas, no brakes. Green beaners. You know, get it. You should be winning that matchup as long as you don't get distracted by things. Bring in your spec forces if they're running sentinels, but that should be a good matchup for you. Soft control can be harder. Kira is there. I have several cards in my sideboard that are intended to make sure I don't get embarrassed by if I have to play Wound his Kira deck. It's a hard deck to pilot, but blue-green villain can be very, very good. They tend to use sentinels, so I mean, bring in that game plan. And then in that matchup in particular, if they're doing Kira as opposed to Chrono, I mean, those daring raids to pick off a unit now and then can be gold. Pure gold. All right, so if you've watched this far, you're my hero. I hope you enjoy Sabine ECL 2.0. Finally, I mentioned the medal ceremony song. This is a jam. I'm going to do a credits slide just for the purposes of playing you the song. So shout out to Chrono, who used this AI voodoo to make this thing, but I think it's pretty good, and check it out. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Hit us up. We're trying to get to more comments. Please support this kind of content. I hope to see you guys at Gen Con if you're going, or out there. And Green Beaners, stay aggro. Loopy out.
In a dim cantina, furrowed brows they dealt the cards. A game on dusty tables under tattooing stars. The stakes were high, the air was thick with fate. A rebel played his hand, and fortunes did await. A medal in his pocket, gleaming in the dark. A token of experience, igniting a rebel spark. Open whispered wisdom like echoes from the force, guiding every movement, altering the course. Equip your rebels, let them go and face the night. The metal changes math, turns wrong into right. They'll live through OB, where once they fold or flee. Win the race, embrace the chase, let the galaxy see. The game's an endless struggle, a mix of luck and skill. Each card a secret weapon, each move a test of will. The Emperor's shadow loomed, but hope flared out the new. In every smuggler's smile and every Jedi's view. Tokens on the table, starships in the black. Victory and honor won't let you turn back. With every play, a chapter penned in rebellion's lore. Every win a testament to battles fought before. Equip your rebels, let them go and face the night. The metal changes math, turns wrong into right. They'll live through OB, where once they fold or flee. Win the race, embrace the chase, let the galaxy see. Equip your rebels, let them go and face the night. The metal changes math, turns wrong into right. They'll live through OB, where once they fold or flee. Win the race, embrace the chase, let the galaxy see.